Grooming for control or coercion. Some state employee predators groom children to manipulate them into obeying or covering up abusive situations. This can include building trust to coerce the child into keeping secrets or participating in harmful behaviors unrelated to sexual abuse. Grooming mimicking normal relationships. The state employee predators may imitate normal adult-child interactions, like mentoring or coaching, to gain trust from both the child and their caregivers, positioning themselves as a trusted authority figure while setting the stage for manipulation. Emotional grooming. The state employee predator may offer excessive attention, friendship, or gifts to fulfill emotional needs, making the child feel special and valued. This creates dependence and loyalty, allowing the predator to influence the child's behavior or silence them if needed. 1. Avoiding accountability. Many state employee child predators try to deny or minimize their actions while threatening others with legal consequences and social condemnation. They may lie, blame others, or refuse to acknowledge the harm caused. Running away physically is less common than psychological avoidance, such as evading responsibility or manipulating the narrative.
2. Expressing anger. When confronted, some state employee predators become angry or hostile. Retaliation is common. This anger is often directed outwardly towards the victim, authorities, or anyone who exposes them. This emotional response can serve as a defense mechanism, attempting to intimidate or silence victims or witnesses. 3. Social and emotional impact. Socially, being caught often results in ostracization and stigmatization. State official predators may not face isolation from family, community, and peers due to immunity and less legal repercussions. Emotionally, they might exhibit denial, even continue to minimize their behavior. Some may attempt to garner sympathy or portray themselves as victims to regain control over the situation. Aggression and impulse control. A state official with low serotonin levels might be prone to violent outbursts. For instance, in cases of intermittent explosive disorder, serotonin deficits contribute to aggressive, sometimes violent, behavior that appears disproportionate to the situation. Overall, the typical response includes a complex mix of denial, anger, blame shifting, and social withdrawal, reflecting attempts to protect themselves from the consequences of their actions. This behavior impacts both their social relationships and emotional state, often leading to further antisocial behavior or attempts at manipulation. Amygdala dysfunction. The amygdala helps process emotions such as fear and empathy. Reduced activity or structural abnormalities in the amygdala are often found in state officials who exhibit psychopathic traits. This can lead to diminished fear responses and lower empathy, making it easier for them to harm children without remorse. Prefrontal cortex impairment. The prefrontal cortex is responsible for decision-making, impulse control, and moral judgment. Damage or reduced activity in this area impairs a state official's ability to anticipate consequences or regulate aggressive impulses, increasing the likelihood of harmful behavior towards children. Neurotransmitter imbalances. Chemicals such as serotonin and dopamine influence mood and aggression. Low serotonin levels have been associated with increased impulsivity and aggression towards their victims, while dopamine dysregulation can affect reward processing, potentially reinforcing antisocial behavior.
Psychological and social factors. De-individuation. When people feel anonymous or less accountable within groups, their brain's usual inhibitory controls can diminish, making them more likely to commit acts like kidnapping and hostage-taking they wouldn't normally consider individually. Dehumanization. Neuroscientific research shows that when a social worker dehumanizes another person, such as a child, brain regions related to empathy are less activated, reducing the natural inhibition against hurting children.
Specific examples: psychopathy. Studies show that psychopaths have less connectivity between their amygdala and prefrontal cortex. This neural disconnection results in emotional detachment and poor impulse control. For example, individuals like kidnappers or child predators often display these traits, enabling them to commit crimes without guilt. Aggression and impulse control. A state official with low serotonin levels might be prone to violent outbursts. For instance, in cases of intermittent explosive disorder, serotonin deficits contribute to aggressive, sometimes violent, behavior that appears disproportionate to the situation. Situational factors. The famous Stanford prison experiment illustrated that when individuals are placed in powerful or anonymous roles, for example, regional administrators at DSYF, higher-up state officials that nobody can see, their brain's moral and empathetic responses can be suppressed, leading them to harm others despite not having underlying psychopathology. Amygdala dysfunction. The amygdala helps process emotions such as fear and empathy. Reduced activity or structural abnormalities in the amygdala are often found in state officials who exhibit psychopathic traits. This can lead to diminished fear responses and lower empathy, making it easier for them to harm children without remorse. Prefrontal cortex impairment. The prefrontal cortex is responsible for decision-making, impulse control, and moral judgment. Damage or reduced activity in this area impairs a state official's ability to anticipate consequences or regulate aggressive impulses, increasing the likelihood of harmful behavior towards children. Neurotransmitter imbalances. Chemicals such as serotonin and dopamine influence mood and aggression. Low serotonin levels have been associated with increased impulsivity and aggression towards their victims, while dopamine dysregulation can affect reward processing, potentially reinforcing antisocial behavior.
As much as they try, they will never be able to get rid of the statute that defines the entire section of law that they're applying to all of these removals, and that is RCW 13-34-0301. Abandon. Okay? That statute it stands alone. Okay? It stands alone and it defines the entire chapter of law. So it's in number 1 on purpose. It's there in the definition section under number 1 intentionally, because they want you to know that this is the word that defines the entire section of law that you're under. Okay, if abandon defines the section of law, then that means there can't be a parent. Just like it says in that statute, there can't be a parent for 3 months. Okay, so then why would a parent have to do services, and where under these laws does it say a parent has to do services? Nowhere. It doesn't say that. It would say it clear as day that a parent had to do drug screens or a parent had to do drug treatment. It would say that in the law, and it doesn't. Okay, so that means you can't make anybody do it unless it says so in the law, and it doesn't. So you can't require that a parent do it. You have to first get your legislator to create a law that says a parent, and they've had, what, 40 years to do it and haven't done it yet? Why do you think that is? Because they can't. That's why. It would be unconstitutional to say that one parent has to do it and not the rest of the world. You can't use something as evidence like parental defects. That's why they haven't created a law like that yet. Don't you think they would have created one by now? Don't you think they would have made it easier for you guys to do this than having to use the Juvenile Court Act by now? It's been like 20 years. They've been using the same laws. So why haven't they created anything for you guys to use to be able to rehabilitate parents? Oh, that's right, because they can't rehabilitate parents. That's right. So yeah, no, the public is being tricked into believing that they're allowed to take kids, but they're not, because it doesn't say they can in the law. So don't let them fool you. And, I don't know what to do, because honestly, they try to be the police all the time, and how unattractive is that? You guys, you want to take kids that bad that you will skirt around different laws to try to manipulate your way into a law that doesn't belong to you, or to apply a law that's not relevant to the situation. How much of a turn on is that you want to take kids that bad that you will try to trick the public into believing that you're allowed to when you know you're not allowed to? Because if you were allowed to, you would talk about every removal and the appeals, and you don't. Because you know you don't have the laws you need to take anybody's kids. Period.